Hey, this is Mike Robbins. Thanks so much for joining me for this episode of the podcast. I hope you're doing well, you, your family, your team, everyone around you. Oh, as I'm recording this, we're rolling through the second week in July. And today I want to talk a bit about how we navigate the uncertainty, how we navigate, planning for the future when dealing with so many things changing around us. And, it's not just that we're living through an incredible time of disruption and change and uncertainty and upheaval and all the things that we are, but just the nature of life, even when the external environment is more stable, um, is just unpredictable. It's uncertain. And as I'm recording this today, I have a pretty heavy heart, as do many people, here in the country, given the tragedy that's still ongoing down in Texas with the flooding and all the lives lost and all the people who've been impacted and, all the young kids at those summer camps. And I mean, the stories coming out are just so heartbreaking and unfathomable and surreal. And in addition to, reading the stories and hearing about it from different people online, and I also have a personal connection. There's a family here in Marin, the Walker family, Mark, his wife Sarah, and his son Johnny, who were all caught in the flood. Mark and I are actually classmates from Stanford. We graduated the same year, and he was briefly on the baseball team. And while we haven't stayed in close touch, we do run into each other from time to time. And he lives right here in Marin County where we live. And some friends of mine from Stanford are really close with him. And then we just found out last night that there was a DNA match. And so he's been confirmed dead, and his wife and son are both missing and presumed to be dead as well, while their 16-year-old daughter, who's the same age as our younger daughter, she survived. She was at a camp and was rescued. And so the implication of all of this, whether you're personally connected to it or not, as we think about it, it's just so hard, you know, as a father, as a human, as someone who cares about and loves the people in my life and thinks about, the innocent lives lost. It's so hard to make sense of and to comprehend. Um, and I've just been thinking about it over the last several days on so many different levels. And without this being too heavy, I do want to pull out some things that I think are important for us, for me at least, in this moment, and for us when grappling with tragedy, loss, grief. As you know, and I've talked about here on the show over the years, and I've written about, I mean, I've dealt with quite a bit of significant loss in my life with my dad and my mom and my sister and my mentor Richard and other people close to me who've passed away. And maybe you've had a lot of experience of loss and grief, or maybe not. But I do think, as I've often written about and spoken about, when I think about loss and grief, and I in no way am I trying to trivialize it, minimize it, sugarcoat it, or anything. It's hard, it's painful, it sucks, it's sad, it's so multi-layered and deeply, deeply emotionally complicated. I do feel like it's an important reminder for all of us all the time that physical life is fleeting. It's precious, it's vulnerable, it's uncertain. Like we never know what's going to happen. We do know for sure that all of us at some point are no longer going to be here. We know that. We don't live with that reality all the time because it can be scary, it can be intense, it can be um, really heavy to think about that, about our own deaths, about the deaths of the people close to us. Um, but as I think about it more, I think it's an important thing. A mentor of mine years ago said to me, Mike, if you lived your life more aware of your own death, you would live very differently. And I think that's true. And, again, it's hard to stay connected to that reality on a daily basis because of the emotional weight of it. And we get caught up in the day-to-day things of life, the big things, the small things, the annoyances. Like I was, flying back from Chattanooga last night after delivering a workshop yesterday morning for a leadership team, and I got delayed and we got rerouted and we had to move and I had to change planes and I had to go to Chicago and I got stuck there and I was tired. I was cranky. I was 14 hours traveling home after getting up really early and delivering a 4-hour workshop. It was a long day and not that big of a deal in the scheme of things, right? And I was texting back and forth with my friend Bronkar, and I'd been sharing with him a bit about my friend Mark and his family and the tragedy in Texas and all the feelings and thoughts I was having about it and just in general and thinking about all the families connected and impacted and the loss and the tragedy and just the like, oh my gosh, we sent our girls to summer camp. Samantha, our older daughter, is working at a summer camp here in California in the Sierra foothills right now. And what must that be like to send your children off to camp for a fun week and a great experience or a couple weeks or however long they're going to be at camp and then for them to not come home? Like I don't even really want to think about that. And as Bronkar and I were communicating about as we were texting back and forth and sending some voice texts, like that is the paradox of life. Like planning for the future, not knowing for sure that we're going to be there in that future, planning for different things, but knowing that every single day life can throw us a curveball that changes things a little bit or a lot, right? What did John Lennon say? Life's what happens when we're busy making other plans. So I think this is really important for us to face in this moment, not just because of the tragedy in Texas. And again, maybe you're listening to this or watching this many months or years later, and while you may remember it, and of course it's incredibly significant, it might not be as viscerally present in the moment as it is as I'm recording this episode of the podcast. But the reality is, like, we just never know. And so how can we simultaneously bring ourselves fully present into the moment right here, right now, appreciate who we are, what we're doing, the people around us, the people that we love, and at the same time, think about, plan for the future in a healthy way with the goals that we have, with the dreams and the aspirations, right? And in a practical way, if you run a business or you're the manager inside of a business, it's like we got to have budgets and plans and goals for the quarter and the year. And like that's all very real and important to do in our lives personally, right? Managing our finances and managing our lives and thinking about where are we going to be in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, if we're fortunate enough to still be around. How do we take care of our bodies and our health? And how do we focus on the health of our family and the people around us? And again, maybe you have children like we do, maybe not. Maybe you have parents of a certain age and other people that you're caring for in different ways. Again, it's the yin and the yang of life. It's the sort of constant tension of life happens in each and every moment, in the present moment, always. And what's happened to us in the past has an impact, clearly. And then as we think about and either get excited about or worried about the future, that also has an impact on us. And there are things for us to do in the present moment to think about, to plan for as we think about our future. But at the same time, like Bronkar said to me, sometimes when I think about planning and saving for the future, I also think like, I don't know what's going to happen. What am I planning for? And I said, I know, man, I feel the same way. So I just want to say in this moment, if you're struggling with any of this dynamic or this tension, you're not alone. And I think right now, with the state of things politically and socially and economically, with the nature of business and technology and everything changing so rapidly, and with things that we're reading about how artificial intelligence is already changing so many things and will continue to, it can be easy to get overwhelmed and stressed out and worried and like, I don't even know what the future may bring. But I think it's important for us to acknowledge whatever we might feel in the present moment and whatever we might be worried about in the future. And just to remember, like, there's nothing wrong with us for feeling however we feel. You know, my friend Emily said something at an event several months ago that I really resonated with. She's a therapist and an author and a speaker. And she said, let your future self worry about your future problems. And as someone who likes to be prepared and likes to plan and tends to worry more than I like to admit about the future. That there was something about her saying that that just really made me take a deeper breath and go, what if I just trusted myself that the future version of me, a year out, 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out, 40, if I'm however long I'm fortunate enough to be walking around the planet, that like everything else that I've dealt with in my life, like you, I will probably figure out how to navigate and deal with whatever comes up as it comes up. Now, that doesn't mean I don't still plan and think about the future and hope to take good care of myself in the present or save money or set goals or those kinds of things. Yes, I do that, but knowing that, A, I don't know what tomorrow holds, neither do you, none of us do. And we've made it through 100% of the challenges that we've ever faced up to this point, right? And there's no way for us to plan for uncertainty or tragedy. We can't. I don't want to put a lot of extra energy and attention on expecting or assuming or wondering or worrying about what if terrible things happen. It's hard not to have those thoughts, to have those fears as they pop up. You know, as we think about aging, as we think about our children getting older and moving through the world, right? Samantha just went off to college last year for her first year. Rosie's got 2 more years of high school, and there's so many different things happening in the world and so much uncertainty. And I could lay awake every night, panicked and worried about the future of the country and the world and our daughters and what's going to happen and myself and Michelle and how are things going to go as we get old, like all those things. And again, those thoughts come up for sure. But I try when that happens to just bring myself back to the present moment, take some deep breaths, put my hands on my heart, and just remember I'm here now. I'm safe in this moment. How do I feel? What am I thinking? Can we bring ourselves back to the present moment? Because that's where life happens, right? And we don't have to bury our head in the sand or pretend like tragic things or painful things or difficult things or scary things don't happen, because they do. I mean, I think that's one of the things that when something like a tragedy happens, like what happened in Texas, like many people, I try to make sense of it, and there's no real making sense of it. I mean, there's the practical reality of water rising and flooding and rivers and all the things that I don't even know that much about myself, but those things happen, right? Storms happen, accidents happen, illnesses happen, but trying to make sense of why they happen and why they happen to certain people and not other people. While I've spent and probably wasted a lot of time in my life doing that, like many of us, I don't really come up with any definitive answers because there doesn't seem to be a rhyme or a reason behind things, especially when something so tragic like this happens. But I do think that we can learn from these experiences. We can choose to be more grateful. We can choose to let the people we know that we love them, hold our kids a little tighter. You know, in the face of this tragedy, it's had me think of some other ones. Not that I necessarily want to revisit those things, but I remember when the horrible shooting happened at Sandy Hook Elementary School in Connecticut. And at that time, those kids in that school were first graders, and Samantha, our oldest, was in first grade. And I just remember dropping her off at school the following Monday after that horrible event had taken place and just feeling so sad and so scared and so emotional and so heartbroken for those families who I did not know, but just like us, had a first grader. And in their cases, we're never going to get to see their son or daughter again. And I just remember hugging Samantha really tight as I dropped her off at school and hugging some of the other parents and the teachers and wiping away my tears and just thinking, oh my gosh, this being human thing is vulnerable. You know, I remember Wayne Dyer, before he passed away, would talk about that life is like getting on a boat, sailing out to sea, and knowing at some point during the voyage, the boat is going to sink. And, you know, people would kind of laugh at it because it was sort of a stark way of describing life, but there is some truth to that. At some point in this journey, our physical life will end. And the question that I often have for myself when I contemplate my own mortality or think about the reality of that is, am I living my life the way I want to live my life? Am I speaking up and saying the things that really matter to me? Am I staying connected to and engaged with the people and the things that are most important and that I love the most? And if I'm really honest, the answer to that question, those questions sometimes is yes, sometimes is no, is often a mixed bag. So what can we do? How can we, process tragedy, grief, uncertainty, disruption, the fear of the unknown? I don't know. I don't have the answer to some of those big questions, but I think it starts with us being present in the moment, being real with how we're actually feeling and what we're thinking and what's going on for us right here, right now, and doing whatever we can to bring ourselves into the present moment as often as possible. It's one of the reasons why, for me, journaling, meditating, even doing this kind of work, because when I'm here with you, even though I'm in my office having this conversation in my microphone, looking at a camera, recording this, it actually brings me into the present moment to my real thoughts, my real feelings, and my intention in wanting to share with you, wanting to connect with you, even though we're connecting in kind of an asynchronous way, if you will. It's one of the things I love about speaking when I'm speaking to a group, whether there's, you know, 8 people sitting around a conference room table like yesterday in Chattanooga, or there's, hundreds of people in a ballroom as there will be next week in San Juan, Puerto Rico when I go speak there. When I'm up speaking, when I'm working with a group of people, not only do I enjoy it very much, but it brings me into the present moment. It brings me right there in that moment so that I can connect with other people, connect with myself, and we share that moment, that experience, and I appreciate it. Personally, selfishly, I hope that some of what I'm saying and sharing might resonate with the people that I'm sharing it with, but I also love being able to be present, be in my mind, in my heart, in that moment with them. So what are the things that bring you into the present moment? Sometimes when I'm walking in nature or I'm exercising, it brings me into the present moment. Or sitting on the couch with Michelle as we're watching one of our favorite shows, even though we're focused on the show and the story. It's like, there I am. Or back when our girls were younger and even more cuddly, when we'd all cuddle on the couch as a family or sit with the cats or, little things, simple things. And sometimes in the face of tragedy, as I've been thinking about Mark and Sarah and Johnny this week, since getting this news and knowing that they were missing and just imagining all the different aspects of not really wanting to imagine what that experience must be like or what it feels like, or for his brother or his daughter or the people, his parents, the people closest to him, walking around a little bit differently, looking around my house or thinking about some of my stresses or my desires from a different perspective and being grateful that I'm still here and I get to experience life, as do you. And that sometimes the loss or the tragedy or the difficulty in another, not in a selfish way, not in a minimizing way, but can remind us and wake us up to the gratitude that maybe was sitting under the surface or that was dormant or that we weren't fully paying attention to. I listened to Brene Brown share some of her research about talking to people who've lost children. And I think for most of us, whether you have children or not, the thought of losing a child, I think most people kind of in the hierarchy of pain and suffering and difficulty and tragedy and loss and grief, that one usually rises to the very top, right? And what Brene Brown said about her research with parents who've lost children, asking what do they want from other people? What do they appreciate from other people? Because it's so hard. What do you do? What do you say? How do you react? How do you relate? How do you engage? And often, with good intention, people say really strange things. I know this from having gone through grief myself, and when my sister died, especially, but also with my parents and other people. Like, people are meaning well and wanting to connect and wanting to share and wanting to offer support, but oftentimes we don't know what to say because there's nothing really to say, or whatever we do, it's not going to take away the pain. It's not going to change the reality. But there was something about what Brene Brown shared in her research that really resonated with me. She said that the vast majority of people who lost children just want the people whose children are still alive to be grateful and to really appreciate, because in their appreciation, it acknowledges the significance of the loss. knowing that you have something that I no longer have and that I miss in my child. And as intense as that is to think about, to me, that seems to make sense. And it's really important. Can we appreciate the lives that we have, the imperfect and at times challenging and painful and confusing lives that we have? And maybe things are going great for you right now and life's really working and humming on all cylinders. Fantastic. Maybe it's going really, really rough and things are painful and challenging and difficult and scary. It's probably somewhere in between, right? As I shared in an episode about a month ago, right now, this is the good old days. At some point in the future, we will look back, you will look back at this moment in your life, even if it's really painful and challenging right now, even if you're going through hard times, you will look back at your life at some point now and appreciate this moment in a different way. Wow, I really navigated through that difficult time. Or maybe again, it's a really great time for you and you'll look back with some nostalgia, some joy and gratitude, maybe even some sadness if at a point in the future things aren't going as well and you look back fondly and go, oh, remember those were the good old days, as we often do. It's, can we appreciate the good old days while they're happening right now? So thinking about how we feel, doing whatever we can to bring ourselves in the present moment, and trying to have as much perspective as we can, right? Like cliches are cliches because they're true. We use them over and over again, or we hear people use them over and over again, and we kind of go, yeah, I know, I've heard that before. But like one of my favorite cliches is this too shall pass. And I don't say that again to minimize anything or to sugarcoat anything or to encourage any kind of spiritual bypassing of any pain or difficulty we may be dealing with. But like whatever's going on right now is not going to be going on forever. You know, there was a chapter in my mentor, Richard Carlson's great mega best-selling book, Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, that basically said, in 100 years, all new people. Think about that. Now, look, I don't know, longevity may change, and maybe there are some people right now who were just born 100 years from now who will still be alive. But basically, statistically, if we fast forward 100 years from today, so what would that be? 21, 25. Just about every single human walking around on the planet will be replaced by a whole new set of humans. That's kind of an overwhelming thought when you think about it, when we really think about it. But like, it's also kind of liberating. Oh, we have a finite time here on this planet. How are we going to choose to spend our time and energy? What are we going to focus on? What are we going to do? And look, I get it. We got to pay the bills, raise our kids, take care of ourselves, do all the things that we do. But if you're privileged enough and fortunate enough to be listening to me or watching this right now on a device of some kind, your phone, tablet, computer screen, I would venture to guess you probably have quite a few blessings in your life and a lot of good stuff that you can focus on. Not to say there aren't any challenges or issues or difficulties or fears or doubts or worries or, but there's so much for us to be able to appreciate and be grateful for if we choose to. And we often have more autonomy and more freedom and more flexibility in our lives than we realize or that we fully acknowledge. So how do you want to live? How do you want to show up? Look, I don't know what the experience is like to pass away, obviously. Very few of us. I mean, there's a handful of people who've had near-death experiences who are still alive, who maybe have more insight than the rest of us. But my assumption is that for all the people that we've ever known who've passed on, who've died, whether they died at a very young age or a very old age, whether they died of natural causes or some illness or an accident or a tragedy, like my friend Mark or others, I would bet and I would venture that those people who pass away do not want those of us here, even if we're grieving and we're sad and we miss them, they do not want us here suffering. They do not want us worrying about them or even about ourselves in the process of. They probably want, and any message that I've ever gotten in dreams and in other forms of communication from the people closest to me who've passed on have basically said to me some version of, I love you. I trust you. I believe in you, and be free. Be yourself. Go for it. And I think that's the message for all of us all the time, even and especially when things might get scary or uncertain or hard or weird or we don't understand, or when there's tragedies that we can't make sense of, or when there's changes happening that seem to be coming too fast and too furious, when it seems like, wait a minute, I thought I knew the rules of the game and the rules keep changing. That seems to be the nature of life, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down. If anything, it seems to be speeding up for better or for worse in the nature of life and work and everything we have going on. So, my invitation to you, just like the invitation I'm trying to make to myself as I navigate through my own grief and my own heaviness in this moment, is how can I more fully show up? How can I more fully engage in life, in work? How can I keep things in perspective in a way that honors myself and the incredibly precious gift that we have to be alive at this moment with everything going on around us? So I know this was a bit philosophical today and sort of, there is a heaviness to how I'm feeling right now, given what's going on. But I think it's important for us to think about these things as best as we possibly can in the face of the uncertainty of being human. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. As always, I appreciate it. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful to have this opportunity to connect with you this way and to have this platform that I have. There's links in the show notes if you're listening to this on your favorite podcast app or platform where you can connect with me on social or learn more about my work. If you're watching this on YouTube, there's also a link there where you can connect with me. We love it when you subscribe or leave a rating or a review and share episodes with other people. Until next time, keep bringing your whole self to work and to life. And remember, oh, yes, remember, we're all in this thing together.